Olson's Meat Pies by Peter Cohen and Olof Landström. This is Olson. Olson has a meat pie factory. Olson has been baking his delicious meat pies for 30 years. Olson's meat pies are famous. Olson uses only the finest ingredients in his pies. The tenderest meat, the freshest onions, the daintiest mushrooms, and the choicest seasonings. There's always a lot to do at Olson's factory. Hugo runs the grinder, and Olson tastes the mixture. He wants to be sure it tastes really good. Strom, the bookkeeper, is in charge of the money. Sometimes Olson goes for a walk. Everyone always greets him kindly because when they see Olson, the first thing they think of is his wonderful meat pies. When the factory is really busy, Mrs. Olson and the children help out. And once in a while, when it's really, really busy, Strom, the bookkeeper, has to jump in. After all, people must have their meat pies, says Olson. They work way into the night. But one morning, when Olson gets to the factory, he notices that something is wrong. Olson, Olson, yells Hugo. Strom, the bookkeeper, has run away and he took all the money with him. At first, Olson thinks about calling the police, but then he remembers how nice Strom usually is. In fact, they are really good friends. Better not make a fuss. Strom will surely come back, thinks Olson. But a whole week goes by, and Strom, the bookkeeper, is still missing. Olson can no longer pay Hugo. He has to run the grinder himself, and now the fine ingredients are beginning to run out. Olson goes to the bank and takes out his savings. But he can't afford to buy the tenderest meat, the freshest onions, the daintiest mushrooms, or the choicest seasonings. The meat pies don't taste quite as good as they used to. Olson hopes no one will notice. Olson begins to run out of money. He has to buy even cheaper ingredients. People in the town are saying that Olson's meat pies don't taste the way they used to. And the fewer meat pies people buy, the worse things are for Olson, of course. Pretty soon his money is all gone. He empties the pockets of his coats and jackets. His children empty their piggy banks. Olson buys some tough old hens. He tries to make them go further by adding potatoes and bread crusts, but that's not enough. Olson pulls all the leftovers out of the pantry. Some old pancakes, a glob of spinach, cold porridge, pea soup, a little rice pudding, and a few fried herring. And when that's still not enough, he dumps in a lot of potato peels. But the grinder needs even more ingredients. Finally, Olson is so desperate that he tosses in just about anything. First, he throws in all his wooden spoons, then the dishcloths and the kitchen towels, some pot holders, gloves with no mates, potted plants, old school books. He throws in clothes, scarves and caps and socks and underwear. In the end, he sacrifices his shirt and his almost brand new shoes. By now, the people in the little town have had enough. Olson's once so loved meat pies just aren't edible anymore. One morning, everyone gathers outside Olson's factory. They scream and shout, Olson's meat pies just won't do. We won't eat this awful goo. People are waving the different things that they have found in their meat pies. My goodness, they really seem upset, thinks Olson. What am I going to do? If only they weren't so angry. Suddenly, he has an idea. If they find nice things in their meat pies, maybe they won't care so much about the taste. Mrs. Olson and the children help him. They look in every nook and cranny. They look in every box. Pretty soon, they have a whole pile of things. The next morning, Olson tucks something into nearly every meat pie. Soon, it's rumored that Dr. Bloom has found a watch, the blacksmith a real gold earring, and the minister a little wind-up monkey. There's a rush of customers. Wherever you look, people are digging through meat pies. Everyone wants to try his luck, but there still isn't much money for new ingredients because Olson has been forced to lower his prices considerably. When Olson takes his evening walk, he becomes awfully sad. Everywhere he goes, he sees discarded meat pies. Olson's once so delicious meat pies lie picked apart in the gutter. And what am I going to do when I run out of objects? He wonders. Olson can't sleep. He thinks of the days when his meat pies graced the finest dinner tables. Suddenly, there's a knock at the window. It's Strom, the bookkeeper. Sorry to bother you so late, Strom mumbles, but I decided to come back if you'll have me. And Strom, the bookkeeper, describes how he ran away with all the money, and how he went to the coast to lie on the beach and have a good time for the rest of his life. But how cold the water was, how boring everything seemed after the first few days, and how lonely he felt. Strom, the bookkeeper, tells them how one day, to cheer himself up, he bought an Olson meat pie, but it tasted terrible, and he almost swallowed a toy soldier. He realized that it was all his fault and how much his conscience was bothering him. Strom has brought almost all the money back with him. Since he is a very thrifty bookkeeper, he has only spent $17.33. The very next morning, Olson sets out to buy new ingredients. He buys the tenderest meat, the freshest onions, the daintiest mushrooms, and the choicest seasonings. Hugo is back running the grinder. Strom, the bookkeeper, is in charge of the money. Olson tastes the mixture. He wants to be sure it tastes really good. The people in the little town are buying more meat pies than ever. They say the pies have never been as delicious as they are now, but they still talk about the time when you could find the strangest things in Olson's meat pies. Okay, so that was a fun book, but here's the deal. It's from Stockholm, Sweden, so I'm not sure why I'm using this accent for this book. Because it was translated by Richard Fisher back in 1989. Anyway, y'all. Distributed by R&S Books, New York.